Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Myrita Minutes. This is Myrita. We want to talk about Love and Marriage Huntsville. This is the second part to the reunion for season 6. I have to say, all in all, I would rate this reunion part a B. I don't think it was as good as the first part, but it still kept me a little interested. As you know, they started out they started up where they left off with Kiki and Letitia. And Letitia just put out there that Kiki and her husband have been cheating on each other for years. And that also that Kiki paid for a date for her husband. Now, if that is indeed the case, then why isn't that your storyline, Kiki? Why wouldn't we know about the infidelity? You sound like your relationship is much more exciting than Letitia's and Marcel's, because them two going to just continue to lie. At least you're out in the open, and I guess you don't want to put your husband out on Front Street. He might not be for it, but that storyline sounds a whole lot better than Letitia and Marcel. You can knock them out the box. You can knock them to be friends of the show since they don't want to share their real. You've shared yours. Knock them out. How about you do that? She thinks she's doing something about putting your stuff out there, putting your business out there. You never put her business out there. And so Kiki, answered Carlos' question, and because Carlos asked her, well, is that true? That, what Letitia is saying, and her thing is yes. We've had infidelities on both sides. And he said, well, is it also true that you paid for a date for your husband? But as she's explained, it didn't quite go down the way Letitia tried to frame it. I think that day or maybe that week or whatever, he must have asked Kiki for some money. And later on, she caught him at a restaurant with another lady, and she went off. So we're assuming that's what he needed the money for. And she went off and commenced to going crazy in the restaurant. But the way Letitia tried to frame it or tried to shape the narrative is that she was on board with him dating other people and she was paying for it. Go ahead, Letitia. Cut it out. But even still, I feel like Kiki has a better storyline, and Kiki is more forthcoming with details. This addiction storyline, it's okay because there are people out there dealing with addiction, and that's fine. But that's not what we want, really. It's not what we want at all. It's more juicy when, it's affairs of the heart type thing. Addiction is kind of serious, and, that's kind of like a downer. That's kind of a sad thing. But affairs of the heart or just someone just being trifling is a more juicy storyline. Kiki, you might want to think about sharing some of that going forward. Just a thought. So, Tisha then grabs some pack of paper and, says she wants to go over as to why she wasn't talking to Kiki at Maurice and Kimmy's barbecue. And it had a lot to do with, again, goes back to the last reunion episode where they showed a clip of Kiki and Letitia making this pact that they're not going to talk about Letitia's marriage, right? And, Kiki basically says she's going to be mindful. She's not going to talk about it, and they agreed to just never bring up her marriage. However, according to Kiki, Letitia reached out to her. Evidently, there was a rumor, and they keep beeping out these names. And for what I've understood in the YouTube streets, it has to do with somebody's makeup artist. I don't know if it's Stormy's makeup artist, Kiki's makeup artist, or Letitia's makeup artist. Somebody makeup artist and another female supposedly had a threesome with Marcel. Anyway, the rumor was out there, yes, in the Huntsville street, because nobody heard about it until it hit the blogs, right? And Tisha went to Kiki to see if she could find out what was true. So my whole thing is you pulling Kiki in your mess. Now you notice that Letitia never said, no, I never went to her. No, I never asked her. No, I tried to still spin it like, oh, she really wasn't for me. I found out that, she was talking to the guy and it was more so. Tell me more about Marceau. Tell me more about Marceau. Tell me more about Marceau. Like she was just trying to, but again, if she's trying to find out information for you that you asked her to get, what else is she supposed to say? I don't understand, Letitia. Either you want to know or you don't. Anyway, she said that Kiki wasn't acting like a real cousin. So she didn't want anything to do with the relationship after that, once she felt like she wasn't really on her side. And Kiki's like, you're lying. What are you talking about? I don't even carry myself that way. I kind of still believe Kiki. I mean, I don't know. Letitia's into not embarrassing Marcel. And he, all through the first part of the reunion, even when it came to Maurice and Kimmy's little storyline about her faking it and everything, you notice the camera went over there and panned to him, said, well, if you were faking, don't tell me now. He just doesn't want to be embarrassed. And she calls herself not trying to embarrass him. Get out of here, Marcel. So Carlos then asked Kimmy and Mel if they feel as though Tisha was in denial. Well, them two ladies got real quiet, and Kimmy's looking down and Melanie's shaking her head, and nobody wants to answer him. And it's like an awkward silence. And then all of a sudden Mel says, all right, go ahead, Kimmy. And Kimmy said, you go ahead, Mel. And people are like cracking up laughing because nobody wants to really address the situation. Everybody can see it. Just like Kiki said, everybody can see what's going on between Letitia and Marcel. And Marcel's watching them to see what they're going to say. Nobody wants to embarrass Marcel. Marcel, you are a butthole. Anywho, so they go back and forth. And finally, Kimmy speaks up and says, no, it's been 5 years. If he's been cheating, just bring the woman out, bring the pictures out, bring the evidence, just lay everything on the table, And so Carlos looks at Mel and says, well, what you think? And again, she really didn't. She thought she was out of it, right? She was like, "Oh Lord, I really got to answer this." So she makes up some stuff up in her head, and kind of like puts her own spin on it based on her own situation. And her thing was, it's kind of hard when you've been with someone for some time and you have kids and you don't want to just walk out because unless you have concrete evidence. Nobody wants to walk out on a relationship, period. Even when you have concrete evidence. I know people that have seen it and still don't want to walk out on their family. So, I mean, that's a hard thing to do. It's all in a matter of what you want to tolerate. I've always been told that. If you know your man or you know your woman and they are running around, it's all in a matter of what you're willing to tolerate. You know what I mean? Everybody has different tolerance levels. I have 0. So, there's that. So, Carlos goes into, well, Kiki and Letitia's relationship becomes strained over time. And then there's other antics that come out, you know, about Kiki. And then they start running this montage about all the stuff that Kiki was starting to do, as far as her outbursts at the cookout and her sweating profusely. And then they show Crime Stoppers and all these things that they're showing a little montage of. And his thing is, based on all this stuff, has anybody ever thought about her being back on whatever? And everybody except for Letitia and Marcel said, no, that wasn't my first thought, that she was back on anything. And I don't know. I feel some way. And maybe I'm just jaded when it comes to Letitia and Marcel, because I feel like they are so into covering up what they got going on. They're willing to throw, and Kiki was just the one they needed to throw under the bus. They can't do nothing with Mel, even though Marcel tried her. But her comebacks hit every time. So he don't really deal with her, but he tries it. Don't get me wrong. He tries it. They don't really go after Martel because they're Martel's friend, and Martel knows where all the bodies are buried. So they don't mess with him too much either. Now, Marcel pokes, but he likes to poke fun. But he knows how far to take it, trust and believe. Maurice acts like he's innocent, but I don't. That's the one y'all need to be watching, because he ain't no good. I'm sorry. He act like he gotta have it so bad all the time. Please. And then you ain't putting it down like that either. Boy, bye. Oh my God, I'm so crazy. Anyway, so they talk about Melody giving her a test, and their thing is, or Mark Carlos' thing is, it came back negative for everything, even methadone. And you said that you were on methadone. And so Melody asked her, do you take methadone every day? She said, yes, I do. She said, but the test came back. Carlos said, but the test came back negative for methadone. Why would it do that? And so then all of a sudden, Marcel and Maurice, they chime in and they talk about, oh, it was somebody else's urine and this, that, and the other, and their test lying and, being themselves. And Melody chimes in. She says, wait a minute, hold up. I just want y'all to know that, I like everything to be on the up and up. It wasn't anybody else in there. She said, I went into the bathroom with her. Production went in the bathroom with her. And that was the result. So either it was a bum test, or maybe it just didn't capture. Maybe by the time she took the test, the level of methadone was so low in her system, it just didn't register. I mean, that's a possibility. But her thing was, I'll take another one. She says she hasn't been on Percocets for years. That's the only thing she's ever, dabbled with, was the Percocet. She's never had any other hard drug ever in life. And I think I believe Kiki. I don't know why. I just do. I believe her over Letitia. Letitia's the one copying, shipping policies from other people's, websites, and acting like it's, and blaming it on the web designer. Just keep that in mind. So then the Whitlows, they join the cast on the stage, and so does Chris and Nell Fletcher. And Carlos hones in on Chris, talking about, come on up here, because he's a TikTok sensation. He does TikTok, and evidently, I see, little blurbs that they put on the show, but when I'm on TikTok and I'm scrolling, he never comes up in my feed. Maybe he's just not part of my demographic. I don't know, but I never see him anything that he does. But anyway, he says his dancing reminds him of George Jefferson. Oh my God, not George Jefferson. I think Chris took a little offense to that, because his thing is George Jefferson. But anyway, he gets up there and he shows them some moves, and Nell yells, oh my God, somebody's been practicing. He said, well, I'm from Detroit. I got moves. I'm like, oh my God. Carlos, please. Please. So then Carlos pivots, and it's almost like he throws shade at Martel, but he goes in, well, he said we watched while Martell navigated the streets. And he kind of hesitated a little bit. And he says, "Of Huntsville, that is." And just so that quickly, the cameras pan over to Martell. His face is like, "What?" But it was funny because everybody knows that Martell is for the streets. Trust and believe. Everybody knows that Martell is for the streets. Anyway, I thought that was funny. I said, "Ooh, he throwing shade at you, Martell," but they moved past that. So Carlos starts talking to him about him dating Sheree. And, Martell gives this explanation like, well, we weren't really dating. We were just friends. And, wasn't that type of party, really with them two. And people are looking at him, and Tiffany is like frowning her face up, like, what do you mean y'all weren't dating or whatever? Either you were or you weren't. People are like, but he did go in with Kimmy because evidently Kimmy must have made a remark in one of her confessionals about Sheree and him. And her thing was, it didn't feel like it was a relationship. She didn't feel any of the warm and fuzzies that come with, someone being smitten by somebody else. And I remember her coming to his, it's the upscale party. Was that the name of the magazine? Anyway, his layout of the magazine. And he kind of like left her. Like he greeted her, gave her a hug or whatever, and then left her on her own. She was like looking like lost for a second because she didn't know anybody, aside from, some of the cast members she was familiar with. But other than that, she didn't know anybody. And it just felt like off. But I felt it wasn't anything anyway, because all of a sudden he shows up. I think they went bike riding or whatever, and then all of a sudden the paparazzi was ain't nobody checking for Sheree like that. Ain't nobody checking for Martell like that. But all of a sudden the paparazzi is seeing y'all take selfies of each other and being in the park riding bikes, walking the dog. Ain't nobody checking for y'all like that, for real. Neither one of y'all. Oh my God, that was like so evident. Anyway, Carlos asked him, is it hard dating other people but still being in love with Mel? And he basically said, well, who said I was in love with Mel? But anyway, so Carlos mentions that, a lot of people thought that him and Sheree had made a pact and that they just was looking to be on each other's storyline, on each other's shows. And then Carlos, and then what's his name? Martell making up some story talking about he really didn't really want to be on Real Housewives of Atlanta. Bull crap. You needed a storyline, and so did she. I wasn't buying that crap at all. So then Carlos asked Lewis about, how did he feel about the conversation that Martell and Marceau had with Tiffany at Black, because, when Sheree was at the upscale function, Tiffany came at her kind of crazy, asking her, did she think she was going to be able to keep Martell? Is she putting the P down like that? And I remember Sheree looking at her like, what? What are you doing? And, Tiffany had the nerve to say, well, y'all weren't really dating. She said, yeah, I guess that was out of order. That would have been out of order anyway, Tiffany, even if they were dating. Like, what are you talking about? Who says that to anybody? Are you putting the P in? Is that enough, do you think, to keep Martell? What? Because she riding for Mel. Mel don't care about that. Mel does not care about that at all. So Carlos asked, Lewis, how he felt about the conversation after seeing it, unfold. And Lewis, of course, didn't go against his wife totally. The only thing he said was, Well, she was spot on some of the things she came back and said. However, she did add a little yeast to the story. And so Martel said, so am I owed an apology? He said, well, I ain't said nothing about no apology because it didn't take two men to address one woman. And he was like, well, me and Tiffany had a meeting. He said Marceau inserted himself, but they were at Black. So, he was just, sitting there. And he said, and Marceau's excuse was, well, he was just reacting to, the conversation, because once he found out what she actually said to Sheree, I remember he was like, you said that? Oh my God. You need to check yourself out and make sure you're not a Karen or whatever. Because Karens are known to say off the wall crap and don't think they need to have any accountability for what they say or do. That's my definition of a Karen. They say off the wall crap to people, anybody, mostly minorities, and they feel like they're rightly so in doing so. And so I understood what Marcel was going, but I think he was still being a little playful. I don't think Marcel meant any harm about calling her a Karen, but she made it seem like it was a racial thing. And I don't think that he meant it that way. And so Carlos asked Tiffany, he said, well, are you bothered by being called a Karen? She said, yeah, it did bother me, because at the same token, she said she's the only one on the panel, on the stage, that is close to white, being that she is half white, and she was raised by the white side of her family. And so, being called a Karen was bothersome. And I get it. I get that. I can see why she would feel some way about it. But knowing Marceau, he's just being a butt. Marceau doesn't come across to me as anyone that's malicious. He likes to poke fun. He thinks he's a jokester. And I think he's funny at times. I don't like how he talks to Letitia sometimes, but Letitia has been in that relationship for so long. She's trained, so she's used to it. So, I mean, if she like it, I love it. I'm not going to go there anymore with Letitia trying to save her. She has to save herself. So Carlos asked Martel, like, well, why did you and Sheree stop seeing each other? And so his reasoning was that he needed to get focused. He needed to be more focused on, him. And so Carlos said, well, she said she stopped seeing you because, you had too much negative press in the gal. He's like, oh, I didn't hear that. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't hear that. He said, that's what she told on that's what she said on her reunion show as to why y'all stopped seeing each other. So Carlos asked him, he said, well, is it hard for you to date other women, knowing that you are still in love with your ex-wife? And he was like, well, who says I still have feelings for my ex-wife? He was like, well, with Melanie changing her last name, he said, was that like the last nail in the coffin for you, for any reconciliation, for your relationship? And Martel was like, well, he didn't understand why she had to change her name back, because it wasn't like she was getting remarried or anything like that. It was like out of the blue. And he just didn't understand why she had to go back to Rogers. And Melanie said, well, what does it matter? And he said, well, it doesn't matter. He said, I don't care or anything. Obviously you do, Martel. Obviously that bothered you. You didn't even want people to go to the ceremony to, for her to go through this last stage. My thing is, this was like the final stage she needed to be disconnected from you. And it was, to her, she wanted to make it a nice ceremony. You didn't even want Nell and Chris to go to the ceremony. You damn sure didn't want any of your buddies to go. That's why she didn't invite Kimmy and Letitia, because she already knew Maurice and Marceau are your friends. And she didn't want it to become a thing. I remember that whole conversation she had with Kimmy, because Kimmy was feeling some way that she wasn't invited. But Kimmy has never been Team Mel. She act like it to a degree, but she's never been Team Mel. She hasn't been Team Mel since season 1. Because I remember the first time Mel called them and they were having a comeback meeting. Y'all remember this? And it was the first segment, or maybe not even the first segment, but one of the first segments of the show. And she was trying to get them to come together so they can have this meeting. And she's talking to Maurice about them showing up. And Kimmy's in the background, like waving her hands, like, no, we don't. Like, she doesn't even want to be bothered with Mel. So she's always showed who she was when it came to Mel. Then she called her bougie because she went to galas and all that kind of stuff. She's never been Team Mel. Never. So that's why they didn't get to go to the ceremony. Her name changed. Your thing was changed. They ain't coming. And she basically said, you know, they haven't always seen eye to eye on some things. So she only wanted close friends and family there. And that's how she left it. So, you know, I guess Martell was just going on talking about he didn't care or whatever. And he was, you know, by himself. So I think Carlos asked him, he said, well, are you currently in a relationship with your other child's mother? And he said, no, I'm single. And Marceau pipes up and says, well, does she know you're not in a relationship? Oh, Lord. See, that's the type of stuff Marceau does. He pokes, but he don't poke long enough, because if he got him riled up. Martell is the wrong one to get riled up, because if you got some business out there in the street, he gonna tell it and throw you right under the bus. So step lightly, Marceau. And so Melly says, thank you, Marceau. And he says, he said, I'm single. He was like, she said, my kids are over there every day. She said, and every time they go over there, she's there. So Carlos said, well, does it hurt you that she's around your kids? And Melanie explained, no, it doesn't hurt that she's there. It's just, she goes into protective mode and she doesn't trust her around the kids. She said, anybody that adored my life and the way my life was set up, and you try your hardest to come in between me and and Martell, and she said, with the help of him, till she broke it up. He broke it up too. I don't know. She kind of seemed like she was kind of blaming everything on Ariane. Ariane couldn't have did nothing if Martell didn't let her. So I blame everything on Martell. Ariane, honestly, Mel, don't owe you nothing. She didn't take those vows. Martell did. However, I understand where she was going, because she reached out she made it personal. This is how I feel. I'm going to go get on my little soapbox right real quick, and then I'm going to get off. Ariane made it personal at some point between her and Mel. And it shouldn't have even gone there, because first of all, Ariane didn't have nothing to do with Mel's husband, but she chose to keep dealing with him, because guess what? He kept dealing with her. So that was her thing. Like, he keeps running after me. He ran after me for 5 years. Blah, 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 blah. I remember that statement too. But she started attacking Mel and saying vile stuff in the DM and things of that nature. She made it personal. It wasn't even anymore about her running with Martell. Then she started attacking Mel. And I get that. I get that completely. And they lose sight of why they're there, actually. I feel like doesn't even become about the man anymore. It's about the other woman. But long story short, we're going to say that Ariane won. What did she win? Dun, 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 the booby prize, Martell. Congratulations, girl. Congratulations. You got him. All to yourself. Anywho, what we got? So his thing was, so Martell evidently got in his feelings about her talking about Ariane being over there, and I guess he didn't. Again, his thing was, he brought up her having 11 babysitters. Now I thought it was 20 babysitters that she had, but anyway, what does having babysitters have to do with this woman being over the house all the time when the kids are there? I just didn't understand the correlation, and I feel like he was just throwing stuff out there just to be shut her up or whatever, but it didn't work, and they go back and forth. And basically, Mel says, "You allowed her to ruin our family." And his thing was, "Well, the kids are fine. The kids are fine." And then she goes into what their paperwork says when they went to court. And she said, "Yeah." She said, "In the paperwork," he said, "I got it in the paperwork about how many babysitters you had and blah, 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 blah." And her thing was, "Yeah, well, like that paperwork says that. Guess what? The paperwork also says that you and Sheree, when they asked you about you seeing Sheree, you said that wasn't anything but a business arrangement. You lie. You're a liar. Blah 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 blah." And he was like, "I got the paperwork. I got the paperwork." She was like, "Well, go get it then." And he storms off stage, act like he's going to get the transcript of what he said, but it wasn't anything but paperwork that he had filed and given to other bloggers to talk about her and her kids' cases online. I'm assuming she was talking about the blogger that he went on, and she got him straight about Mel. But yeah, he said that ain't nothing but you sending paperwork. That's the same paperwork you sent to the bloggers to talk about us. And he went all the way back there, strutted off the stage, and then came back with a goose egg. Ain't have nothing. A mess. A mess. So then they talked to Tiffany and Lou, and he asked her, based on everything that she was going through, they decided to step back from the show as she was suffering from postpartum. And it was really sad. And the camera did capture that she was not in the same space. This wasn't the same lady that was very excited about having a baby, had coerced her husband into, let's do this, let's have a baby, because he wasn't really for it in the beginning. And she wanted a baby, and she was real gun-ho. She was going to do all this stuff. And he basically told her, well, your life is going to change when you have this baby. You're not going to be able to work the way that you do now and still have this baby. Because his thing was, my schedule's not going to change. And but she didn't, factor in the fact that she may have postpartum, which threw a whole monkey wrench in everything. And it was really sad. And, she needed to collect herself. So they came to a agreement that they should step back from the show, at least to get herself together. She needed to find Tiffany. And Carlos asked Lou, like, where was he in this whole process? And his thing was, well, by him being in the middle of baseball or softball, whatever he coaches, he was on the road a lot. However, he did notice things when he would come home, because things just didn't seem right. And he understood that, that she was suffering from something. So they both made that conscious decision to step back from the show. And Carlos, understood that, why they did it, told them that they were brave, told Tiffany she was brave for doing so. It's hard to manage a new baby, be a working mom, and you're suffering from postpartum, and you're trying to film for a reality TV show. That's a lot. That's a lot to put on someone's plate. And his thing was, if they ever decide to come back, the door's always open. And yeah, so they may come back as friends of the show or something to that effect. Next, they bring on Miss Betty, Storm's mom, and her cousin Junior, her aunt Lisa's son. Can somebody tell me what was going on with Junior's suit? That wasn't country as country can get. I mean, I know they're from Alabama, but what in the world? He had tassels going down one side of the pants leg. It was like a Gordon Contrell suit. It was like it was unfinished. Like you only had tassels going down one side of the pants leg. You had these things on the lapel of the suit, on the arms of the suit. It's like raised embroidery stuff. It was a mess. I don't know why he thought that was did somebody tell him that looked good? I don't know what type of fashion statement he was trying to make, but that looked a hot mess. I know. Are they dressing like that in Alabama? I hope not, because that suit looked terrible. Let somebody put me on game. Maybe that's the new style. I could be wrong. Help me out here. But that thing, ooh. And then Carlos gonna make a comment. Talking about, oh, is that one of Martel's? Did y'all say? Oh, anyway. Well, long story short, Carlos wanted to know, what happened or why did she have such vitriol for Melody? And he confirmed that she's always been a fan of the show. So she's been watching since season 1. So she's never liked Melody from jump. Okay. And I guess it was Stormy's ambition to get on the show, and she did anything she could to try to get on the show. And by offering up her house for Melody's first video, I'm assuming that was her leg in. And she's a businesswoman. She had Canvas Beauty already, even though I never heard of Canvas Beauty until Love and Mary Jonesville. She said only people knew about Letitia and them because of the show. Well, I didn't know about her until the show. Maybe that was a down south thing, because I never saw anything about Canvas Beauty until the show. Or maybe I saw it and then saw the show. I don't know. No, I honestly don't remember looking for it. Maybe it was in the stores and I just never paid attention to it. But I didn't know anything about Canvas Beauty until the show, because my intention was, when she started advertising on the show and I knew what she did, I was actually going to go on her website and order something. But I'm so glad that I didn't, because I would have never got my order, clearly, because they didn't have I don't think they had the capital or the people to fund all the orders that they were getting. But Target had started to sell it. So that's where I started using the products. And I only used the oil, and I think maybe it was just the oil. I bought it a couple of times, and then after that they took it off the shelves. So I don't know, it wasn't in Target anymore, or at least not where I live. And so so then Miss Betty goes in on Melody, and her thing was, I guess she was on a fan page, and the topic came up about somebody recording in Melody's house, or somebody recording Melody. And the way that I guess the episode ran, and when they were talking about it, looked like they were referencing that it could have been Stormy because she was in the house. Melody basically said, well, it was a lot more people in the house than just Stormy. And her thing was, yeah, but it didn't come across that way because of the live tweeting. It looked like could have been her that was recording, and that Mel didn't do anything or rectify it or say anything or to shut it down. Because if you know how the millimeters are, the millimeters don't play. There's no filter on any of the millimeters when they call themselves defending Melody. Melody, first of all, don't need defending, because she can defend herself. She'll let you know. I got this, y'all. But the millimeters don't care. They will go after whoever they feel is doing Melody wrong or coming wrong for Melody, because they're going to drag Miss Betty over this. They're going to drag Miss Betty. I'm waiting to see some of the comments. But they will be dragging Miss Betty over this. Trust and believe. Anyway, she goes back and forth with Mel and talks to her, say, well, you still, you didn't rectify, you didn't read down in the comments, you didn't do this. She was like, no, I didn't see it. Stormy swears up and down Melody saw it. She said, oh, you saw it because you see everything. And I thought that was horrible for Stormy to say, because you don't know what she saw. And maybe she did see it. But guess what? She felt maybe she didn't feel like it was that serious for her to even mention anything. Why does she have to say anything? It's up the millimeters, or the fans are going to believe what they want to believe anyway. It wasn't, and I guess they think that Melody's got a lot more power than she may think she have. I don't know. But anyways, long story short, Miss Betty got upset, and her thing was, you still fussing with a man you've been divorced with for 3 years. And she was like, what? Mind your business. Miss Betty, she said, you got enough to contend with your sister and your family. And Miss Betty had the nerve to tell her to stay out of her business. Are you really, after you going to come for her for talking to her baby daddy that she can argue with if she want to? She's got 4 kids by him, Miss Betty. They still have to communicate. What are you talking about? You still fussing with a man you divorced? She divorced him, yes, but the kids ain't divorced from him. You sound crazy, Miss Betty. I don't understand. And Stormy was trying to get her mom to be quiet, but that's bullcrap. I don't know why Stormy was acting like she was trying to shut her mother down. She can't control her mother. They showed the scenes on the episode when her Aunt Lisa was going at it, and she was trying to calm her mother down. She don't have no control over her mother. Her mother says and does what she wants to. So now all of a sudden, while they're on the show, on the reunion show, she's gonna say, "Ma, Betty, stop. Like she gonna listen to her. Betty got her mind of her own, and she's ignorant, just like Stormy. That's where I feel. Anyway. So it goes off that way, you guys. I mean, I don't know. How did you rank this reunion? I guess I give it about an 8. It's not, to me, it wasn't as good as the first one. I like the first one better, but it has some moments. It really did. It has some moments. I can't wait to see next week, to see what next week brings. So please leave any comments. Please like, share, subscribe. Doesn't cost anything to subscribe. And I will talk with you later. Peace.